Hey, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? We have the second live today. This is with Solar Joe. Okay, coming in from Solar Systems. Definitely want to check out his Instagram. He's busting out constant content every day. Plenty of it will make you laugh, and plenty of it will actually give you pretty clear insights as for what to do, what to wear. So Joe's one of my favorite people that's out here in this community. He has something that I think makes him very unique, and it has always separated him from the flock. And this is his ability to understand the constellations and from the fixed star perspective, the 88 constellations. He has different projects coming out with these 88 constellations that you're going to want to check out. He definitely will make some mentions about it. So what I love about him is he is bringing a type of astrology that most astrologers don't know what the hell he's talking about because they have not done the research in this particular area. And I think this makes him very, very special. So I don't even know if I'm going to say this properly. Aquila?
Yeah, Aquila, perfect.
Aquila, war call. What the hell is this about?
Yeah, so first things first, the war call aspect is really amplified by the alignment that I think was just your last live about, talking about Pluto and Mars working together. And what's interesting is once we get a little more deep into the constellations that they're actually transiting, we'll understand like how it's kind of going to pick us up and then drop us off like right with what we actually want to make happen. So when we're understanding that, we have to start with Pluto and Mars, both the energies that we're dealing with, right? And these are the very scorpionic planets that both of us have a pretty deep connection with, right? The first Scorpio ascendant, all that stuff, right? The dark side of Mars. So when we're understanding this, we need to isolate the exact planets that are basically the carriers or the arbiters of this energy, right? So we have Pluto and Mars in the early degrees of Aquarius, which is basically showing people the hidden intentions, the hidden agendas, the underlying transformations that people have dealt with when it comes to their actual, you know, like place in society, their understanding of it. And obviously, if you want to get the specifics of that, check the house that you have Aquarius in. I think you just covered that for everyone in your last two lives. So with that specifically, what I was talking about, especially on the new moon with all that energy, is understanding the societal constructs that hold power over you and you just adapt to and you just naturally have, right? So basically that energy is people sticking to terminologies like, oh, it's my family, or oh, this is my friend, oh, this is like my country or my society or my people, right? And just blindly accepting the energy of their tribe, blindly just diving into their own sense of tribalism and all that energy. And that's kind of coming out right now where people are looking at it from the perspective of, you know, I don't owe anyone nothing based off some predetermined association that I have with them. Based on how I interpreted where we're starting out with this energy, right? So, say we dive a little bit deeper and we get to a new constellation or a new energy or a new awareness past the house or the space in the sky, we have to see what constellation is contained in that space in the sky. And what we have in particular for Pluto right now is actually the Cygnus constellation, which is the swan, right? So this is the thing that I was talking about in regards to lifting you up and then dropping you down, right? So Cygnus in itself is basically it's a beautiful constellation. It's the constellation of beauty, joy, learning how to ride the waves in a comfortable understanding while being on display. So it's a combination of Venus and Jupiter, right? This is right now where Pluto is at. And where it's moving to, which is where Mars is at today, is Aquila, which is the eagle, right? So we're shifting from beauty all the way into the beast, right? Beauty and the beast. It's not exactly the beast in the sense of the constellation is eagle, but it is a predator bird, an eagle bird, right? It's represented as the eagle, which people often correlate as the eagle. So when we put these two things and we look at, you know, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and then what are you willing to do to fight for it, right? Right now, this is why I would say Pluto in Aquarius has been quite good and quite beautiful for a lot of people, because it's like, it's giving you your gifts. It's showing you what you're good at. It's giving you the abundance that everybody was looking for during retrograde season. And now it's here, right? So when we get into this energy and we actually move through it, right now people are kind of understanding the power and the beauty of what they have. While they are feeling the motivation to work towards the actual vision of what they want, which is the ideal. you know?
Yeah.
So,
I've been feeling that heavy. I've been feeling, we were just talking about, I don't know it from this, excuse me, from this personal perspective, but I honest to God have been feeling it. I'm like, yo, my motivation is through the roof.
mm-hmm.
Like, I'm just like, I'm out in these streets, like,
doing
whatever projects I got that's on the list is getting this work. Like, and I feel like I've been dedicated. I don't need much motivation from anything. Like, it's just been like I've been very streamlined focused. I'm like, I feel like things that have been very difficult for me to do
mm-hmm.
over time are just getting done. And I'm talking like long-term things, like doing my email list and like getting forecasts written out on it. Like, that's something I wanted to do for a long time, but they just been getting done lately.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the thing, like, because a lot of people, I mean, like, you probably know, but a lot of astrologers don't know is that, like, the late degrees of Capricorn is the true exaltation of Mars. And it's like, as the constellations, like, actually shift for, like, being the reason why that is, that's, you know, like, Aquila is basically why that is. So that's why it's, like, that kind of cusp between Capricorn and Aquarius is, one, the exaltation of Mars, but also it's a good planetary energy on top of the constellation behind it actually being the like a motivator, you know, especially for Aries, because it's like all about the ego. I am. This is what I want to get done. This is the exact vision that I want to create. And it's tied to me and my self-respect as a person. Oh man, it's done before I even woke up.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
That definitely makes a lot of sense. What's going on? Let's see what Clarabelle's saying. Hello, glad to come through to this. Scorpio rising. Hey, we Scorpio rising up in here too. Joe on the other side is Scorpio rising. I'm a Scorpio rising. The energy is about to happen, perhaps. We're on the cusp of something greater and believe I can do it. I am. Aries moon. I'm also Aries moon. He is as well. so energy attracts. We all three on the call. We Aries moon and Scorpio rising. So definitely share more, Clarabelle. I hope I said your name properly. Claire. Clarabelle. Okay. It's actually really pretty. I've never seen that before. Clarabelle. Okay. So yeah, no, wait. We are those people. All right. So what is this war call about?
So that's when we get more specifically into the actual fixed stars, right? So if you notice before, I said beauty in the eye of the beholder. And why I said that is because we were talking about where Pluto is at in the Cygnus constellation of the Swan. It's literally angling the eye of Cygnus, which is called Albiro, you know? So that's why I literally said beauty in the eye of the beholder, because not only is it like beauty from the space of beauty itself, but it's also people who perceive the beauty. So it's basically that like symbiotic understanding of where it's like, I see this is perfect, and then and then the opportunity that you see is perfect also sees you as the perfect person to actually accomplish that, right? Which is why, you know, we're like feeling so powerful and accomplishing all these things seamlessly in a sense. Now, when we shift to the war call aspect, this is for a lot of people that I guess like kind of in between our ages. I don't know if you ever heard of the game Assassin's Creed.
Of course.
Yeah. So if you know, the main person in the storyline is literally called Altair, which is directly in reference to the star that is aligned with Mars right now in the throat of the Aquila Constellation, which is Altair. So it's just interesting how that understanding of spiritual war plays out, because it's not necessarily it's a very interesting thing to act, because inherently Altair is like a Jupiter and Martian star. So it's a very unique kind of energy to unpack in a sense, because yes, it's all about spiritual war and speaking up for the ideals that are truly embodied in you. And how I break this down is correlating the energy of where the star is at internal human chakra systems, which is kind of how I get my little like breakdown on it. So basically, what is it squawking about? What is it expressing? What does it want to say, right? This in particular is that call for people to truly fight for what they believe in, right? What are the morals they directly align with? What are the intentions that they have based off of what they are actually working with, you know? So this is why people aren't exactly afraid to speak up and fight for who they embody and what they believe in and the ego they represent, right?
Sure.
So that's basically like the basic breakdown of it. But when we get into the specifics and actually dive into the history of when all of these alignments actually happened in the past, it's very, very interesting, right? Because when we're talking about spiritual war, spiritual awareness. What was the earliest and biggest embodiment of myth in recorded history? You have any guesses?
I had a thought process, but I'm listening.
It was the Roman Empire, right? So when we're talking about the Roman Empire, one of the biggest things that stemmed off of that was, you know, the Roman Catholic Church, right? And how it kind of correlated through history. And it's very interesting because a lot of the biggest energies around Pluto and Aquarius, which will start at 1042, the Crusades, will move all the way up into the 1300s, which is a lot of other things going on. And then in the 1500s, with the inevitable fracturing of the Catholic Church around 1520, which is ironically the last time that Saturn and Neptune actually aligned in Pisces. So move on through history a little bit more. We also have the 1700s, which after the fracture of the Catholic Church, we had the fracture of the monarchy and the birth of democracy, which was also represented with what? The eagle, the American eagle. That's what came up all over again. Now, interspersed in throughout all of this, once we get a little deeper into actually understanding how the Civil War was constructed, is understanding all of the tools that we actually use today, not only to express and interpret and, you know, capture ideas, but also how we calculate time. So I'm sure once I kind of like list out these points, you can dive into it and get a little more specific bullet pointed things so we can structure it properly. But look at it this way, right? We still use Roman numerals. We still use the same lettering system. We still use a derivative of the language. And all of that is an encapsulation of the ideas that we actually use based off that egoistic expression from Aquila, right? So think about it this way when we get into the spiritual war, because we've already had the basics done. We've already had like fracturing of the monarchy. The last, like, you know, the Pope doesn't have all the power over the world that it does since the 1500s, you know? But how it did instill that small aspect of, you know, control over society and implementation of Christian holidays into the baseline understanding of how we calculate time is the Gregorian calendar. Right after the fracturing of the Catholic Church, Pope Gregory, whatever, like in the 16th century, implemented the Gregorian calendar. Did it really take off into the ruling powers of society? In the 1780s, right after the, you know, basically right after the inauguration and creation of America, implemented in, you know, the Great British Empire, as well as being the calendar system for the United States. So just like think about like how that little aspect of that like papalism, as well as that energy from the Roman Empire, has been riddled through our society ever since. And every time there is a big transmutation and change, it happens to be right around the time Pluto is actually angling Aquila, the early degrees of Aquarius.
So maybe this kind of leads us into that. So what does this mean for the people watching? What does this mean transit-wise? Like, how does this translate today? So the history is showing us what it's showing us from what you said as well. How does that translate to the moment, to this transit, to what people are going through, what they're feeling, and how they can utilize this with maximum effort?
So how they can really utilize it with maximum effort is understanding the energy of authenticity itself, right? So think about everyone watching that like has their Aries moon placement. You can basically react and say with like however you feel and however you want. And no matter how much people feel or how mad they get at you, really don't get that mad at you, because they know in your core belief that's how you feel. And on top of like the little Aries energy of, you know how to judge without attachment. You know, it's just like if you see somebody that's like you know, overweight and they're drinking Mountain Dew every day and they're crying to you for why they can't like lose weight or have like really high glycogen in their bloodstream, you're gonna look at them like they're crazy and just begin to stare at that Mountain Dew that they have on their desk and say, I feel like you know the answer, and you're gonna look at them like they're stupid, right? So that's basically the energy that you want to get in with this, except you want to get aligned with your purpose and you really want to have that push, right? because you want to use that beauty from Pluto and understand how you can actually be yourself amongst your associations. And you want to use that power from Mars and using that Aquila energy to truly motivate and fight and basically implement your power of no. You want to implement your power of this is not for me, so you can cut out everything that doesn't align with you to make your goal crystal clear.
Sure.
That's basically how you can use it in a basic sense. But when we take the historical aspect into it, if you really want to get deep into your purpose and your understanding and all that stuff, you need to understand the time that you are on, the subtle layer of structure that was basically gifted to you from birth that you may have never even questioned today, and actually meditate on that and understand that, is this the time you want to be on? Is this the schedule that you want to be on, the one that was handed to you from birth just because everybody does it? Obviously,
it's an F no.
Right. But at the same time, you have to understand the simplicity that it does, right? It's basically like, you know, getting rid of your iOS devices and going all the way into coding your own Linux software, you know?
Sure.
You
complex.
can't teach immediately.
Right. It's super complex. So you're saying that the way to do this, as we really work on our own systems of software, is step by step.
Step by step, right.
Right. So don't plunge in.
No, you have to go through the pros and cons with yourself, because I can tell you right now, without any understanding of it, the pros greatly outweigh the cons. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, you can be like, oh, you know, I'm going back on the solar calendar. I'm like, catch me next Bakhtun. And you could also recognize that, hey, like nobody else uses that. Nobody knows what time that is. Last time I checked, this doesn't integrate with Google Calendar. So unless I want to be a half-naked man standing outside of cenote in Mexico, it's not going to work. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. No. It makes a lot of sense. So when I look at this from how to utilize this in a step-by-step, it's kind of knowing, all right, I feel like I'm kind of going through this right now with the fusion of Vedic astrology and astrology, right? Like Vedic astrology in some transits is like basically 1 month behind. Like when the sun goes into Aquarius, the sun goes into Capricorn in Vedic, right? When the sun goes into Pisces, the sun goes into Aquarius for Vedic. And that's one way to look at it. But then I'm also been kind of putting together like, okay, the North Node's in Aries right now in Western astrology. The North Node has already left Aries in Vedic, and it's already in Pisces. And so it's like these two calendars kind of operating simultaneously. And I've just been kind of finding the consistencies, but also realizing and accepting in that process, I didn't just throw Western astrology in the trash.
Right.
Right.
Well, what I'm trying to tell people with this system that I use, right? Because I feel like yes, Vedic has all of the different, what do you call them? The nakshatras? So it's like, yes, it has that. But what I've been trying to tell people with this combination of like Western astrology as well as utilizing the constellations is that, you know, you have to look at Western astrology as the vast ocean that contains all of the constellations. And if you ignore the constellations, you're ignoring the individual light waves that are in between, right? Giving you the specifics of what's happening in that individual degree. So this is why I say that, because it's like, yes, you know, like technically, like in Vedic, it is 22 to 24 degrees behind, but it's discounting all of these other constellations. So if you do want to go with the constellation route, like that's just how I see it. That's
not true. The nakshatras are constellations.
I hear you, but I'm saying the constellations that are literally there, because it's 27 versus 88. So it's just like,
but it's not 27.
Okay.
There's 27 main constellations, but within that, it's broken into 3 different nakshatras each. So that's 27 times 3, step 1. And then whatever that number is, which I don't know, is broken in 4 more times.
Damn.
So now that's 27 times 3 for each one. I don't actually know what the 27 times 3.
Yeah. Like 91 or 93.
Okay, 81. 81 times 4. 324.
Damn.
Right? So you have 88 constellations that you're pulling from, right?
Yeah.
But the throat of one of them is just a part of that constellation itself, right? So even though there's 88, how many parts to each one of those 88? Let's just say 9. Whatever. I don't know the number.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking at this, right, and I'm seeing 324, this is kind of like similarities. That's what I'm seeing in the moment. Like, I don't look at it as just 27 constellations. I'm like, each of these are actually subparts to subparts to subparts. And then when you go into it, that's 324 that I have at that number there. But that when I go deeper into it, there's different periods, Mahadashas and yada yada. Now we're breaking it into, like, you might be in a sub period, like an individual. An individual might be in a sub period of, they're going through 7 years of being in the major period of Mercury. But then there's a sub period within that 7 year period of through each one of the planets, the sun. So Mercury major, minor sun, minor moon, minor Venus. So there's like, but this is kind of what I was saying before. Like, so I just wanted, like, if it's based off constellations itself, I can't say there's 27 constellations. There's 27 constellations, but there's subparts that's making it 324 minor individual parts of that constellation.
I got you. So what would you say is the overlap from like Vedic to like kind of what I've been saying is going on?
Well, the overlap is the definitions are the same. The mythologies are different.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm just wondering what the mythology for like this specific area, if you know it is.
So right now I didn't look at what's in the sky, Vedically speaking, but I do know that, let's say Jupiter had just transitioned into Aries, but a different nakshatra in Jupiter and Aries. So it left Ashwini and it went to Bharani, right? And I know Bharani has a layer of Venus energy to it, but it is ruled by a deity called Yama, which is like the god of death. And so it's not death in the sense of like, okay, oh, you simply die. It's like, it could be a death of a habit, right? A death of an action that you used to take, a death of a romance that was out of alignment, whatever. And it's a transformation, right? And so it's kind of transformation, Mars, Pluto, death, right?
Well, I mean,
action.
Yeah. That directly correlates with what I was saying in regards to learning how to say no to a bunch of things in order to have full clarity in towards of what you need to focus on that's directly aligned with you.
And that's the same thing, right? Because one of the layers to this nakshatra of Aries is Venus. But it's saying no to these things so that you can understand your true pleasures. The whole reason is disciplining. The god of discipline, the god of death, is killing things off to discipline them, not to be in a cage and be trapped. Is to actually create more freedom and pleasure on what's unique to you, Aries, as an individual. Now, that's just Jupiter in this particular nakshatra broken down a couple layers. So it kind of sounds a lot the same.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm like right now, I don't know like where is it actually at in the sky. I know I could tell you about it from the nakshatra standpoint and what's happening. But like if I was to look at it right now, I would then be able to kind of go a couple layers deep and see like, okay, it's in this nakshatra called Bharani. Great. It's automatically owned by a deity who's Venetian by default. Okay, great. But then I can go into the mythology of it. Of a lot of it is about reconciliation, forgiveness. And a lot of that is also forgiveness of self, right? Because like, oh, damn, like I was listening to X, Y, and Z for how long? I was listening to this for how long? So it's kind of like learning to kind of reconcile and forgive myself on one level. But it's also Venus, so there's a relationship. So the relationship with what? Forgiving myself with the relationship of habit I have with alcohol or weed or a lover. Okay, Venus still exists. Or an item, a possession. Or Venus, again, on the Taurus side, an innate talent. Wow, I have this freaking innate talent that I haven't used. Like there's a reconciliation process, there's a healing process that happens. And again, a disciplining process of to make this innate talent of mine useful. What do I need to do? What boundaries do I need to set? Right? So again, this is just, I'm only looking at it from, that's just Jupiter. Right? So there's a bunch of other stuff happening simultaneously.
Okay. So if we could bring that back to what I was saying in regard to the calendar and the understanding, I'm sure we could both come to a very simple conclusion in how people could use an alternative calendar, which is, you know, what we've been pushing forever, which is the stars, right? And understanding the individual calendar that is already created, right? Because when it comes to the spiritual understanding of a body that incarnates on Earth, you need to take the form of the being that you incarnated into, which is why we have all of the same chakras as well as the same planets inside of us. When we understand that, we can understand that each individual, you know, rising sign has its own time to do certain things, and they're all kind of on the same time. So you were to actually, I guess you would say, disintegrate your personal connection with the Gregorian calendar from a personal standpoint, but not to like obviously schedule things with others. Once everybody's on, like, oh, it's Saturn and Pisces time, actually in the spiritual routine. Once we get to that or whatever, that happens probably when Pluto enters Pisces, and it'll be vaguely annoying because Pluto will be in Pisces. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But right now, people could literally utilize the planets as their own personal time, because when the sun transits your first house, what do? You need to shine on a light on how you present yourself, how you may not want to present yourself, how you want to actually come correct in the space, right?
Right.
You have Saturn in the 12th house for a lot of my Aries ascendants out there. This is the time of where you need to be a little careful with the beliefs you actually align with and the dreams you're having, because you can put your mind in a mental jail cell, along with having a lot of parental issues, specifically on the paternal side. These are the times that you can actually utilize right now. And what Aquila is trying to basically give you, and what even more specifically Altair is trying to tell you, is it's trying to give you the clear gumption to align and identify exactly how you need to move through in this space that is specifically aligned with you. You need to align with yourself and really start shedding the different ideals that were forced onto you from society at large. It doesn't mean you have to necessarily get rid of them and swing the pendulum all the way in the other direction. It just means you need to mentally detach yourself and see it from an external point of view, so you can recognize what you want to use versus what you don't. And what we recommend is you already follow us in the alternative, in an alternate means from a, time standpoint, is just start living with the planets more. Start feeling yourself. Start feeling the alignments within your own chakra systems.
Sure. I feel like this is a good question. Can this cause us to distance ourselves from self-responsibility?
Well, this is what we were talking about before the call, and what I think your personal star that aligns with your moon best aligns with, which is combining the spiritual practices that you have with actual practical life things, because you're still living here. And what you told me way back in the day is that a lot of people in the spiritual community learn the hard way that they have to respect Saturn.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying, oh snap, Saturn's in Pisces, I guess Amex has finally dissolved and we don't have to pay our credit card debts. Bill still has to be paid, but it doesn't mean that you have to necessarily distance yourself from your own responsibilities. I'm just saying you need to detach mentally. For a lot of people that have never even heard or come across the concept that they can distance themselves from the Gregorian calendar, even let alone know what the Gregorian calendar is. Hint, it's the calendar you're using right now. But what I'm saying is you can slowly release your emotional attachment to it in order to create space for something new where you can live your own individualistic, life and energy on. That's what I'm saying. I hope that answers the question.
Sure. And I'm kind of hearing that being boundless doesn't mean that structures aren't necessary, right? Like the ability to be boundless, let's say Pisces, doesn't mean that it doesn't benefit from structure. And, the way I see it in this, if I look at it just from the Saturn and Pisces, for example, it's like the structure is actually what allow you to go further and farther. Because if you were to gain, Saturn is a character development planet, right? And so if you were to be given all of the rewards that this character and your mind or your imagination has constructed, you would likely crumble. You wouldn't be able to handle the pressure. If I gave you $15 million right now, but you come from let's say a family structure with irrational fears around wealth, you would lose that money seemingly overnight. And this happens in the NFL and the NBA all the time. A lot of them come from extremely poor backgrounds that has never seen money, so they don't know how to manage it, right? And it's like there's not enough character development that allows them to, when they receive those rewards for whatever their dream, right? Pisces dream. They dream to be in an NFL. They dream to be in an NBA. They can't sustain it. And that's why I find So I wouldn't say like it completely is about like, relinquishing self-responsibility. I actually think it's the opposite. I think it's about finding something worth being responsible for.
Well, it's like, you know what they say, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, build a team.
Yeah.
I think honestly, like during the Saturn and Pisces transit, a lot of people have found their own like internal responsibilities. And if not, they're, reaping the punishment of, I guess, being irresponsible.
Yeah, because in all sincerity, I feel like life has definitely just like showed me all the reasons why I want to be responsible for my own, like he just said, for my own internal, keyword, internal responsibilities. Like I found more reason to stay committed to my routines and actually be disciplined than ever before. And a lot of it is about this Aquila war call, right? Where it's like over the last, since the winter solstice and even prior to that, right? It's actually been the opposite. It's like life has like basically broken me down, showed me here's the mantras that I need, here are the routines I need. This is why I need to stretch in the morning. This is why I need to exercise. Like here's what happens when I don't. And it kind of showed me like all of it. It's like here's how my body and even my character deconstructed, literally completely withered away to show me, hey, these dreams you have, Purnell, like these are the habits that are required to actually maintain and sustain it, to take it from a place of a dream or your imagination and actually make it a consistent reality. Here's what we need to break down as a part of your character so that we can build you up properly.
Well, on top of that, like think about what happens every time in history that I mentioned around this time. Like so many people, oh, thank you. So many people, like so many aspects and new opportunities are always created around this time. Like in the 1700s, new country, new land, literally the land of opportunity. That's what they called it. And then in the 1500s, a whole boatload of new religion, all different Protestant religions, all these different aspects, all these different opportunities. I don't exactly know what happened in the late 1200s. I think that was like another crusade or something. But long story short, in the in the second millennia, in the beginning of that, there was many more places, new lands to conquer. Everybody was going to different spaces and energies and different awarenesses. Like literally, this is a time of opportunity. And every time this constellation rolls around, it gives you the energy and awareness to feel like you can do it. That's what it is. So this is where I want to ask you, and I will preface this question a little deeper than just Pluto and Aquarius. Like, I mean, because obviously we're leaning towards a lot of different tools and frameworks for decentralization. But what the spin that I want to add onto it is when we have Jupiter as well as Uranus finally lean into Gemini, creating I guess which we call revolution for education. And we can already kind of see it now with the advent of like school and Kajabi and XYZ and courses.
Sure. What's your question though?
Oh, right. Sorry. My question is, where do you see the next transformation coming with all these energies and contingencies in mind?
Well, basic early school and childhood education will definitely add more components of spirituality, and it'll expand, right? Like I was talking to somebody when I used to live in Asia, I was in Thailand, and kids who were like maybe third or fourth grade, they were all on the soccer field doing qigong. You know what I'm saying? Like, now that's happening in one culture. If I think Jupiter and culture, I think that that's going to now spread and disseminate to many different cultures, right? Where like I know for a fact in the US, there's nobody doing qigong in elementary school. It's just not happening. No one's doing tai chi. No one does breath work as a part of their breakfast. You feel me? You know what I'm saying? Like in the schooling system, right? Like if you look in certain schools in Africa, like they prioritize art. But in the US, they took art away. Gemini is one of the creators to me. They are art, right? So when I look at this and I see Uranus, it's like this is a part of liberation, liberating us from art and music. Being able to play a musical or an artistic instrument with your hands. These are one of the things I definitely see being revolutionized and us being liberated from when it comes to Uranus and Gemini, but also Jupiter, where it's like Jupiter being that spiritual advisor, coming into a logical sign like Gemini, it really is being able to teach the child who has a very short attention span, right? I feel like there's definitely going to be a shift where the mind that stays more like a monkey, I feel like Jupiter will find a way, in a sense, to use his wisdom and actually bring, because right, we know Jupiter and Gemini debilitates. I forget the terminology, debilitate or falls, one or the other.
Yeah.
Right, and so it doesn't necessarily function properly. But considering that Uranus will be there simultaneously, right? It's one of these things where I do feel that art will be implemented back into school more, creativity, music, right? And more importantly, like, these are the things that I feel like is going to bring more discipline, because Jupiter is the sign that does like to discipline, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do find more discipline happening with those creative outlets. At bare minimum, it's my hope. And I also understand that logical forms of spirituality, like astrology, will become more mainstream. That's just a personal opinion. I feel like astrology is a logical form of spirituality. Like, you can bring intelligence into the world of this spiritual discipline. Right. And I find that these will be gapped. This won't be so far-fetched. I was thinking earlier today, for example, I have some connections back as as an alumni of my university. I was like, you know what? I'm going to use this Facebook group, which my alumni is a part of for my particular major, which was exercise physiology. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to reach out and put a post up. And I'm going to say, hey, all of you exercise physiologists, believe it or not, one of the most important classes that I even wish I paid more attention to was anatomy.
Mm.
And why? Because what I didn't know then was that anatomy, I was really interested in it, but I still feel like my attention span was still a little like college is a lot, right? Yeah. When I look at anatomy, I'm like, wow, I would have paid more attention to the liver, to the kidneys, to the spleen. Why? Because now I'm running memberships and I'm using Tai Chi to heal as a spiritual practice, the liver, the stomach, and internalized emotions and thoughts that may not even be ours, may be ours. And I'm now using the hands, Gemini. So it feels a lot of hands-on learning, a lot of hands-on healing. Geminis are healers with their hands. Being able to take the incorporeal and put it into the corporeal reality. Being able to use your hand on your liver, which holds anger, and practice certain motions and movements with the hands. I find that these are the things that are going to be able to go back into the schooling systems. And I look at it in my university, if I think higher education, Jupiter, how can I'm going to tell them like, yo, I see one of my professors. I'm like, yo, I had a professor reach out and say, yo, let us know when you're back in the States. And I'm going to let her know. I'm like, yo, look, I need to come in and teach this class and go back into those simple classes where we learned about the organs and the muscular system and the muscular tissues and the respiratory system, and tell them the circulatory system is Aquarius. Mm. Tell them that the hands and that we have the healing we're doing in reflexology with the feet or acupuncture is Gemini and Virgo. So I feel like this is one of the things that I had this feeling just yesterday when you asked about Uranus and Jupiter and Gemini, bringing back this form of logic and healing where they won't be able to deny the logical benefits, because in the class I'm going to do that and have them imitate Gemini, follow what I do, and you tell me how you feel from the logic. Can you rationalize that you were angry when you started this class and now your anger has dissipated? Is that a yes or a no? The answer will be yes. And the mind can't dispute that. So I find that these are the things that's going to come back, and it's going to be a matter of who are the gurus, who are the higher education teachers who step outside of basic education, beyond even university, and got experience hands-on in the world. And can those people come back into the elementary schools, into the middle schools, and try to teach this earlier, when they're young enough to sponge this information like Gemini, so that now 20, 30 years later, aka Pluto and Aquarius, when they're now in their 30s and their 40s, right? Now they're me, but 20 years ahead of time.
That's gonna be crazy.
It's gonna be buck the wild. I'm about to make everybody shamans out in this mother lover, and just like, hey, here's the way. And they're gonna be young enough to not be so stubborn and egoic, because Gemini has that sponge energy with their intelligence. They're like, look, I'm not really gonna judge anything. Like, even if I think this is crazy, I'm gonna listen. Even if I don't do this, I'm gonna listen. I hear it. I don't even fully believe it, but I don't have to. I heard it, and I'm gonna put it in my junk jar, because Gemini, I'm just here to collect information. I don't have to agree with the information, but I collected it. And that's kind of what happened with me back when I was in university. It's like, I heard the information, I collected it. I didn't really think that astrology, and I didn't put the things together. It took me 10, 15 more years after college to put them together and realize, oh snap, this actually was useful in a way that I could never foresee, because I wasn't doing Tai Chi back then. I wasn't doing Qigong. I didn't connect astrology to the human organs and body parts. I didn't know Pisces was the feet. I had no clue. Once I figured out Pisces was the feet, I started wearing socks. And I started putting socks on with the intention, with my hands behind the socks up, protect my dream space. Allow me to go further and farther in a safe way, and ground me while I'm in my sleep state, and protect me. Right? That's a simple manifestation technique. But I didn't connect the feet at a point when I was in these early ages to Pisces. But once I did, now I realized I'm listening to one day on a short, they were asking basketball players, do you wear socks when you sleep? And everybody was like, no, ew, that's weird. Who wears socks when they sleep? Only psychopaths do that. And only one guy spoke his mind and said, yeah, sometimes I wear socks. And he kind of felt weird about it. He felt judged. But while I'm watching it, I'm thinking the same thing I just told you. Oh my God, until I met a Pisces who always wears socks on their feet and always takes extra care of their feet. I was not somebody who took extra care of my feet. In fact, I was triggered like an Aries and reactionary and judgmental when I had dated a girl who took care of and massaged her feet. And then I realized, what was I really triggered by? I was never taking care of my feet. I never took care of my feet, ever. But all manifestations come from the Akashic Ocean, which is most closely related to Pisces. So if you really want to be a grand manifester, take care of your freaking feet. And who knows this? Chinese traditional Jesus, apparently, Tamiyan, right? But it's also like in Chinese traditional medicine, reflexology, acupuncture, right? Just yesterday, I looked up what are the zodiac signs in the feet. And what I found was, in the foot, where's the liver? In the foot, where's the heart? In the foot, where's the lungs? And there are particular parts in the feet that are covered in lungs. So you're having breathing and respiratory issues. You can put pressure on this particular spot on the foot. So I find myself wanting to go back into universities, going back to my elementary school, back to my middle school, reach out to those old teachers, Jupiter and Gemini, and tell them, hey, and now I got to be logical, right? I can't get too shamanic on them.
Yeah, no.
Right? I can't just come in like, yeah, like I'm an astrologist, but I can come in like I'm an exercise physiologist. So it's about using Gemini, using the logic, realizing I need to play mind games. I need to play tricks, because they're not going to let me through the door if I tell them this is what I do. But what they will let through the door is for me to say I'm an exercise physiologist, because now people go, oh, what's that? At bare minimum. And it's like, and I could tell them whatever I want to tell them, because they don't know what it is. No one knows what an exercise physiologist, but it sounds smart enough. It's a credit, right? Like it's an accolade that says, okay, well, you have a degree in this? Yes, I have a degree in this. I'm a scientist. Oh, you're a scientist. Yes, I'm a scientist. Oh, well, come in. And then when I come in, now it's about being the trickery, right, of Mercury. Come in, trick them, and tell them flat out, oh, yeah, hey, I'm going to come in. I'm going to talk about the importance of the liver. You have an anatomy class in 3rd grade? Hey, ladies and gentlemen, the liver sits under the right side of the rib. Now, what I want you to do is, on the right side of the rib, did you know that the liver has a color associated with it? Does anybody know what color the liver is? No? Oh, I know it's pink. Close. It's green. It's green? Why? Right? And then it's about playing that. It's about that nonsense. You feel me? But
yeah.
for me as a shaman in 2024, I'm starting to realize like this is how I have to talk to people. I have to dumb it down like I'm talking to a 5 to 11-year-old kid, Gemini. And that is my access point to teach spirituality to the adolescents. So that's what I foresee. I know that was a long-winded, but that's how I feel. At least when I think of what's my unique call, that's how I have to step back into the school system, because they're not going to let me in as an astrologist.
Oh, God, no.
Right? They're not going to let me in if I say, oh, I'm a shaman. They're not going to let me in if I say I can heal and cure cancer. They're not going to let me in. I'm going to be the first one they tell no. But they will let me in if I say that I'm an exercise physiologist and I can help you manage gout, respiratory diseases, asthma, right? Asthma is one of the simplest, easiest things to get rid of. Oh, no, I can't do that. I have asthma. I was like, what? Let's get rid of it today. But I can't say that, right? I can come in, and it was about using my education and realize I can help you manage asthma. I used to have asthma. Now I have basically no irritation. And that's the truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had asthma. Asthma has no impact on my health. I was pre-diabetic. My pre-diabetes is completely eradicated, but to the school system, managed.
I just love all of this because I do it all the time. My favorite thing using the Gemini energy is understanding that if you put enough information on anything, you can pretty quickly identify what level people, like, I guess, attribute their belief to. So as long as you put enough elaborate information with specifics on it, they'll just believe you.
You see what I'm saying? Like, that's it. All you got to do is code it in scientific jargon. People love science. They love religion, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to know your audience and who you're talking to, right? Like, right. If I'm talking now to a church, I need to now, say everything I just said, but code it with God. And while I'm saying God, I may simply be disguising, well, what are my beliefs in God? I don't have to say my beliefs in God. I'm talking to a Christian church. They're going to believe that I'm talking about Jesus. Mm-hmm. Period. I don't have to ever disclose the information that, to me, God is nature. God is animals. God is everything, right? Like, literally, like, I don't see a differentiation. Mm-hmm. But I don't need to share that. Mm-mm. Right? I can pick a Bible verse that talks about animals. And I can come prepared with my information ahead of time. Why? Because Gemini collects information. So I can look at the Bible. I can imitate the exact verse. So when I say that verse word for word, they're going to go, oh, he's a believer. He's a believer. And now I say that exact verse, and now I go ahead and stuff in the actual information that gets them to get what I feel is necessary, which is not about what I feel, but if I think Uranus energy, essentially what God told me to tell them. Mm. So that's how I see Uranus and Gemini.
You gotta flex on them.
We gotta flex on them. And it took me a long time to kind of come around to this, because there's a part of me that's just like, I can't be anything but honest. And I had to learn how to be honest, get people to heal, stop paying the pharmacy, grow a nutsack and go be an entrepreneur because that's what they wanted to do their whole life. Mm-hmm. And just find ways to just be a human. And I think this is a lot of what it comes down to, like disintegrating the ego and separating from my adventures, separating from what I really know, and realize that I only know these things to give to other people. Mm. At the end of the day, like, I don't know these things so I can stroke my own ooh. Right? Like, I only reincarnated to give this to people, to advance humanity. Period. So that's why I feel like a lot of this, Mars Pluto energy is about disagreeing. I'm still a Scorpio rising, right? So it's ruling my first house on both, right? Yeah. So it's like disintegrating the ego, disintegrating the fact that I'll be judged for X, Y, and Z, and realize, okay, well, how can I strategically put this in the school system, put this into play, put this out into the world, and bypass the judgment altogether? And a lot of that comes down to realizing that this isn't really my idea. This is an idea that was just floating. I heard it somewhere, one of these voices in my head, because there's countless voices, and I meditated, I narrowed them down, I funneled all his ideas, and I'm like, which one of you are the most important today for this event, right now. And it's what I just said about the school system. That's all that needed to be said about this Gemini and Jupiter and Uranus.
For sure. So now bringing it back to closer to now times a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
what do you, and what kind of what I was thinking about when you were talking about that and transitioning the school system and everybody having a better access to their own energy and individuality and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Pluto in Aquarius is also the transformation of social media and how we connect to the public at large, right?
Mm.
But what it also is, from the constellational aspect, is the clarity as well as the precision when it comes to identifying and utilizing our egos and ideals for what we deeply connect with, right?
Mm.
So basically what that is, and with like, larger access to information and just basically having a more difficult time sifting through and I guess, what was it? What's the word? Curating what is mostly beneficial to you.
Mm-hmm.
How do you kind of see people applying their individuality in a more entrepreneurial way? Because energy, that's kind of what I see with it.
Okay. So I feel like the first thing that's happening with this, when I think Aquarius, is how much isolation Aquarians need. That's step one. And I feel like it starts with not allowing the nonsense the nonsense judgmental mind to get in the way of, well, if I start separating from myself from different organizations and groups that actually just suck and drain my energy, and I stop caring that they're going to make me feel bad about it, and I kind of see that they're trying to make me feel bad, but I'm still kind of attached to this people-pleasing narrative that I don't want to really I still don't want to step on the toes, but then my high mind is telling me that they know that already, and that's what's kind of keeping me into this. So I feel like a lot of it is step one, working through that part. And so that they can actually decide, you know what, I'm going to take my isolation because this is just what I need. It's just what I need. It's not even just what I need, but it's what I know that I must have. I feel like that's one of the major first steps. Even if I think back in Vedic right now, there's a nakshatra that's going on right now, or I think during the conjunction, the Sun, Moon, Mercury conjunction, where Mercury and Saturn will combust, right? So it'll be happening in Pisces and Aquarius, let's just say, for this example. And what's going to happen with this to be sucked? It's a circle. It's literally a circle. It's an empty circle. And this is Aquarius, right? The symbolism is an empty circle. Or it can also be considered the 100 doctors, right? And so this is a very healing nakshatra. It's very healing, but the thing is, it doesn't heal what it thinks it needs to heal. It heals by stepping into the void. Part of that circle, that empty circle, is stepping into the void. So that's, again, healthy forms of isolation, healthy forms of retreat, so that I can better come back and deal with the projections of other people, deal with the judgment of other people. If I think Sun ruling the 7th house for Aquarius, to deal with the projections of other people in a healthy manner. And I feel like this is one of the major things that needs to happen first, because too many people are afraid to go off on their own and actually take what they know is a talent, because everybody knows that they have a talent at this point. I truly believe that. And if not, by the end of Jupiter in Taurus, they will. They will. At the end of that, especially, Uranus is leaving Taurus, another natural talent, innate talent. If you don't know what it is yet, you will know. And if you don't know what it is yet, take some time alone. Stop being stubborn and create a habit that is healthy, and create a ritual that is healthy. Write down, earth sign, what is my unhealthy habits? And realize that list is for you. No one can judge your list if you don't show it. Okay, so that's step one, right? I got a list. I wrote down one of my unhealthy habits is I smoke way too much weed. Okay, great. One of my unhealthy habits is I watch TV all the way till bed, and my mind is actually just active and keeps running throughout the night. Okay, great. So now I'm looking at these 1-2 habits. Okay, you know what? Well, I just love smoking weed, so I'm not stopping that. But what I can do is I can do this maybe not on school nights. Okay, that's too much. That's 5 for Noor, and I only have class twice a week. Okay, I could do this twice a week. Twice a week, I'm not going to smoke weed. One simple, minute habit, because Taurus is the type of sign where you can't give it too much change all overnight. But you can change one thing. You can change one thing slowly, and not even all the time. You can change it only this week. And then next week, I'm going back to my habit. But then the week after that, maybe I go back. And then eventually I can do it for 2 weeks in a row. So you can slowly change things for Taurus. So I think step one is allowing ourselves to slowly change, realizing that Pluto and Aquarius is 20 years. So what are you rushing for? Right? There's no rush. It's 20 years. But do understand this, that each small incremental step you put into this will make your final transformation and transmutation a lot simpler. Because if you try to wait and you decide to be stubborn for 20 years and then let it change, it's going to change you and it's going to be very horrific and it's unnecessary. Like, I think so. That's another part of this whole thing, to stop the self-punishment. Stop punishing ourselves. You know, I met a doctor once when I was in Asia and he said, you know what I realized about humans? He was like, what? Or I was like, what? And he was like, that they're all masochists. And we're like, what do you mean? And it's like, well, they hurt themselves every day. He's like, I would know, I'm a doctor. He didn't really say this. I'm kind of animating it. I would know, I'm a doctor. Every day somebody comes in to me and I look at what's actually, why they're really here. And all they did was they hurt themselves. You knew you were full, so you stuffed your stomach anyways? Why? Right? Like you knew you were about to bust. You're already like this, and you still ate another cake. What was wrong with the first cake? Why did you have to eat 7? Right? What's wrong with the last 2 slices of pizza? Did you have to eat the whole pie? So whatever, like we hurt ourselves. And so I think another one is to stop punishing ourselves and get more to the root of why you're punishing yourself, right? Like, okay, is this going back to, a rape that you're dealing with that you never physically dealt with, but rape has run in the bloodline for women in your family. Okay, so you've internalized this emotion. You've generationally been stung with this, and you're experiencing the fact that you're coating your body with extra food so that you can actually appear less attractive. Okay, now I understand the source. Now let me just look at that source, be honest with myself, and take one step at a time. Don't try to make it change overnight, because I'm dealing with 9 generations of women who have went through this, even though I myself may not have. So I think it's about coming into the root causes of our traumas and being kind, simple, and harmonic with them as best we can, and realize we don't need to further the punishment. We can make a shift, small shift, micro shift. And as much as these may seem like they don't necessarily directly relate to you being an entrepreneur, at the end of the day, if I use that same example and I'm overeating, what's happening? My mind is not clear. My gut is not clear. My thoughts are not clear. My emotions are not clear, right? Because my gut is dirty. So if I can't clean my gut, I can't get the clear idea that God has been trying to push through me, because I have so much mental fog. So I think a lot of it starts with what are these traumas? Take a little step, do some shadow work, step by step, brick by brick. From the high mind, because we're talking Aquarius. So when the high mind says, look, we just need to journal at least once a week. Once a week, open your journal and write down all your stress. Okay, fine. And once you start doing that, these micro shifts, what will happen over time, you'll see this massive, massive return. And so to kind of get deeper into your question, what will happen then, everything will be clear. Because I'm telling you, that's really what happened for me. Like I'm right now, like I feel like I'm steamrolling in my life, coming from a very still, annoyingly still place in my life. Like I was still all winter, still. And I was really not that happy about it. I was a little grumpy about it, if I'm being honest. I found myself not being grateful about it at certain standpoints. I'm like, yo, God, okay, cool, you got it. I got the message, but like, yo, can we move? Like, right? Got a little testy. But then I also came back and I was like, you know what? P, you're steamrolling right now because of this. So, the benefits will come. Chill the hell out. It's cool. I get it. You're going to get there. Okay, so it's like coming back to that calm, not punishing myself, realizing, you know what? It's okay. And also realizing that I need more time to sit the hell down and process, because so much has been happening. This has been the consistent message coming to me. Pernell, slow down, because I need you to realize that a lot has happened. So much has happened that a normal human would have broken by now. And humans are breaking. Period. People are breaking in half, in itty bitty pieces right now. And a lot of what I think is going on is we can't just keep forcing our way through. We have to sit in our center in this fixed energy. And then once all that goes down, I'm telling you, it's in that sit, in that process. What happens now, the whole reason for processing is to let go and make more space. Let go and make more space. So I told people like 2 days ago, I had the biggest, most, war cry, literally a war cry. I had this warrior cry for myself and for the world. It almost took the pressure of the world for me to cry for myself. Like literally, like I had to think about like how effed up the world is. I had to think about, and I had to come back to like I'm telling, like I broke down. Like I was on the ground, I was laying down. I tried to stand up, my knees went bambi on me, and I just fell again. I tried to stand up and it just fell again. And then eventually I was like, Pete, why don't you just stay down? Just stay down. Like, you're not going to stay here forever, but why don't you allow yourself to you got hit, it hurt. Why don't you stay down for now? Stop trying to get up. Get up when you can get up. And this is what physically happened. But now what does it tell me in the other world? Like spiritually, I've been going through so much shift and change at a genetic level that my body physically could not stand anymore. And it's like, I don't need to hold the weight of the universe. I had to come back to that simplicity. Stop. The world will eventually get there, Pete. You can't do it all, period. Especially not by yourself. So stay down for now. You'll get back up. And so me allowing myself to just stay down in this tremendously weakened Bambi state, couldn't walk, couldn't stand, couldn't do nothing but cry and sing while crying and get angry and get sad and then get randomly enraged, not understanding where the rage is coming from. And then just on repetition, just God loves me. God loves me. God loves me. It's the only thing. I felt like I was like in a catatonic state. Not kidding. I was like in a psychotic state where I was locked into the phrase, God loves me. God loves me. And every once in a while, God loves us. God loves us. God loves me. God loves me. And it's all I can repeat. I couldn't do anything. I was just on the ground, just still crying, wanting to stand. And I just kept, and I'm listening. My high mind Aquarius is listening to this state of being. And my logic, my human self was like, Pete, get up and get to work. And I'm just like, I can't. Like I physically can't. I had the plan to go to work today. The low mind was still trying to get me to move. And the high mind was like, yo, stay here. We broke you down this much because you need more time to process. And if you won't process, we will for you. We will force you to. And that's just what happened. That's just what I needed at the time because I haven't cried in way too long. I needed to release that pressure, release those old things, release these fears, release these anxieties. And if you saw the last live I did earlier today, like I had these anxieties about my homeland, about me living here, about me becoming a resident in Mexico. And it's like, it happened now for 3 months almost. But it's that aftermath of I was so controlling of the process. Like I wanted a home so bad that the anxiety lasted for 2.5 months later. Because all I could think was eventually life was like, Pete, you're trying to process 7 years of trying to find a home. It took me 7 years to find a home abroad. And you can't give yourself this one day to cry about it. We're going to break you down and keep you down until further notice. We want you to understand how far you've come, how big of an accomplishment this really is already, because you're starting a brand new generational standing abroad as a Black man in a foreign country. You don't know the language entirely. Okay, we already have you taking Spanish class. So it's like all of that is a lot, right? I'm not even speaking the language. I'm taking Spanish classes. I'm having to deal with generational nonsense of I'm a Black man. And there's different pressures about no one in my family has ever been abroad like this and stayed abroad. 1 to 2 people, maybe 3 have been abroad ever. None have stayed abroad on their own because some have stayed abroad with support. On their own. I'm on my own. There's nothing coming in except for me. Period. Right? And so it's like process. I think this is the most important piece about stepping into full-time entrepreneurship. Process how far you've already come. And only then can you, Aquarius, let go of the Capricornian accolades and how hard it took for you to get to the top of the mountain. Because that's what Aquarius is here to do. Only when it does that can it then make space for God's message, because God's message is too big. It's way too big to try to maintain, oh, I'm a chief executive officer. Ah, yes, I've graduated as an exercise physiologist. Ah, yes, I was the top of my class in blah, blah, blah. That's Capricorn. Aquarius is like, look, if I don't let this go, I don't have the space for a divine mission above the mountaintop. And I think this is really where it really begins. And that within itself is already too much. So it's not even about what's the plan for my entrepreneurial business. It's not about how do I make money. It's not about setting up your links so that people can book your services, right? It's not about blah, 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 blah. It's about, can you process this stuff first and release it? That's the beginning. And then when you do that, Aquarius has the ability to pick up the ideas that God has already sifting and circulating. That's it. And then it's to not take ownership of the idea. So that when people judge it, because it is futuristic by nature, it is lofty by default, because it's God's idea, and humans don't process God very well. They don't process the meaning, the understanding, the faith, the belief, none of that very well, because it's like, oh, I can't see it. I can't touch it, right? I can't experiment. So it's like, okay, boom, be patient and be calm with that process, and realize then that only when you let go of all this worldly desire, all this worldly, all these worldly systems, kind of what you're talking about with this right now, the Gregorian calendar, and realize, you know what? Well, New Year's tells me that it's January 1st, but if I'm being honest, I always feel brand new in February. Well, the Chinese New Year starts in February. Maybe I align with this system better. Maybe not, but the high mind of Aquarius will tell you. Aquarius, ruling the 3rd and the 10th house. Okay, so I have life, system, reputation, as well as scheduling, right? And documentation. Okay, great. Wait a minute. What is this telling me? My money really comes in heavy every year in March to June. This is when I make so much money that if I use that money over each month properly, instead of spending it all in 2 months, I can actually last 12 months on what I make in 3 months. This is my good season. Okay, wait. So now I can actually allow myself, when the winter solstice comes, when I have less energy, to just keep living off of what I made in March. Okay, but it takes a plan. Oh, Aquarius, you have the plan? You actually have the energy to mastermind this? And for the next 20 years, you're transforming this for me? Okay, great. All right. Well, let me start trying this out. And I'm just trying to tell y'all like a real life, like repetition of what I had to do for my own life. I had to literally deprogram everything I just said and operate from this system and realize, every year Capricorn season, I'm quiet. And when I try to be loud in the beginning of Capricorn season, because kind of like you just said, this the Aquila war call, at the end of Capricorn season, I'm freaking pumping. But in the beginning of Capricorn season, I'm slow as hell. And even prior to that, I'm slow as hell. And prior to that, I'm slow as hell. So it's like, okay, P, it's 7 years later. This is the 5th retreat you've run. You have certain seasons that don't work well for retreats. But the evidence is showing me what season is not good. I know when I used to try to force these things, and I know that it didn't work out so well. When I tried to force a retreat back in January in Colombia, I had so much resistance. But I ran my retreat in November last year, and it was probably the easiest thing I've ever done in my life. Right? It's only a 3-month difference or so. Right? But I was working against the grain. So when Joe talks about the calendar of this Aquila and his work hall, and being able to understand it takes a long time, because you were born, all of us listening, in the Gregorian calendar. So your soul may operate on a different timeline, but you're still a human, operate on the Gregorian calendar. So you have to almost unlearn and realize that it's different for you. And I live with somebody where we work on the exact opposites. When she's steamrolling, I'm still as hell, meditating in silence, pure darkness. It's just dark as hell when she's in her brightest season. And then when she's in her dark, quiet ass, don't want to be bothered by nobody's season, I'm out here cranking like a machine. And it's just, but we live on the exact opposite spectrum. And so I think the Aquarius mastermind understand, like, if you isolate, if you do this, you'll go through the healing necessary. Like I said, it's 100. It represents 100 doctors. So you don't have one doctor working on you, you have 100. And these are esoteric surgeons. So these aren't surgeons that's really doing things with their hands. These are esoteric surgeons. These are surgeons that work on your soul, that work on your spirit. So you had 5 lifetimes ago where you stole a piece of gold, and this is why you're dealing with issues of wealth in this life. They work on that spirit. And then in the physical world, it starts to make sense eventually.
It just takes time. But like you said, Pluto and Aquarius is 20 years. You'll figure it out.
Life will figure it out for you. And that's the best part about Aquarius. Aquarius just, they're always having ideas that are just not theirs. I find that the only way Aquarius suffers in this is when they fall into their shadow frequency of Leo and they want to claim ownership of the idea itself. It's like God gave you that idea. So now that you've claimed ownership, God is also like, hey, you know what? You're going to have to take the weight of the judgment. So when your idea that's so futuristic and so lofty in nature does not get received well and you don't get instant gratification, we want you to understand that you're broken about this because you fell into the shadow. You claimed it. You tried to claim an idea that was too advanced for you. But if you leave it my idea, you know what? I can take the weight. It's like I as God can take the weight. You're just my vessel, period. So when Aquarius can align with that energy of, oh, wait, I'm just a vessel? Yes. So I don't need to fall victim to the criticism and judgment of this? Yes. So wait, I'm not fueled by praise and glory? No. Huh. So I could just put it out there and I'm good. Yes. But what if I claim ownership? You'll suffer.
Damn.
And it's just that simple. It's just that simple. And the thing is, the thing about Aquarius, and this is going to happen heavier in 2025, when a North Node, at least in Vedic astrology, when a North Node goes into Aquarius. In the South, May 2025, the North Node goes into Aquarius, or Rahu goes into Aquarius. And then Leo will be in Ketu, or the South Node. So again, in Western, because they operate simultaneously. Like, I don't know how to tell people this in any other way. But if we don't recognize it, we don't recognize it. It's not much different than a language. If I start speaking Spanish to you and you don't recognize it, you don't recognize it. It doesn't mean that what I'm saying is not real. Like, if you don't understand the language, you don't understand the language. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But I'm telling y'all, it operates simultaneously. So I don't know where it's at right now or when it will be there in Western, but what I do know is May 2025, you'll start to feel this. Any ownership and claiming of God's idea as your own, you'll get crushed. You will get crushed because you will look for the gratification and you will never receive it. And the harder part is you'll try to willpower your way through the idea. You will meet massive resistance, unnecessary weight. Now, on the opposite end, here's the awkward and the hard part with the Aquarius, let's say in the North Node. You may think that you're here to be an astrologer. And that's what you keep working towards. But life just keeps giving you roadblocks. And God says, no, we want you to teach Spanish. And you're looking at it like, this has nothing to do with what I want to do. I don't want to teach Spanish. That makes no sense. That's not even remotely close to my YouTube channel. God goes, doesn't matter. Teach Spanish. And it kind of goes right back to the example I gave you earlier where I went to school, cool, didn't really understand, blah, 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 became an exercise physiologist. Okay, so whatever. 15 years later, what I learned as an exercise physiologist, 15 years later, actually tied back into astrology, Qigong, and Tai Chi. I didn't have the vision to see that 15 years ago, this would tie in. Period. So now while you're thinking, well, why would God want me to teach Spanish? This makes no sense. This is stupid. Now you get a divine mission to become the astrologer for the Spanish-speaking community, not for English speakers. Then you meet your success. But you had to learn and teach Spanish first. You had to get your Spanish classes up. And then 7 years later, they connect. And that's the circulatory system of Aquarius, taking all these brainstorms, mad scientist energy, words on the white wall, and bringing it back together. My whole point behind this is you don't own the timeline. You don't own the timeline, and it's beyond all of us. So any attachment to when you think something's supposed to happen, you will suffer. I promise. You don't have to agree or listen, but my promise is my promise, and you will see it come true, without a doubt.
I mean, you said that perfectly yourself. I don't think much more even needs to be said.
That's it. I came here to get my nails done. What? Wind chimes are speaking up. Trust the process. Absolutely. Grand plan. Absolutely. Yeah. Joe, I think we nailed them. I think we nailed them on this one.
Yeah. That I feel like people are going to be coming back to this for a while.
Yeah, like, you know, it's definitely something that, like, throughout time, like, come back. Because, again, remember, Mars is the first one on the battlefield.
Mm.
And when you're in a war, there's carnage. People are dying. People are screaming. Limbs are flying in the air. Guts are falling out. My point behind all of that graphic imagery is you don't think clearly. When you're in the front of the battlefield, you're not in the back. You're not the advisor. Let's say you're not Jupiter in this instance, which is in Taurus right now. That's the advisor. That's the spiritual advisor. But then you have the king or the sun, which is where? Aquarius right now, turning into Pisces soon. The king is still, again, in the back, being able to see the war from a different perspective. They're not on a battlefield. But when you're in the middle of battle and you're in that bloodlust, you can't see. So my point is, refer back to the sun. Refer back to Jupiter, wherever it is in your individual charts, because they will give you the wider, broad scale vantage point. They will help you see what you can't see while you're in the middle of battle. And understand that coming up very soon, I think around February 28th, the sun will conjunct Mercury and Saturn. So both of those planets will burn up. They'll lose all their power. I don't want to say all of them, but their power will be forced to be redirected towards the sun's purpose and needs. And so that in Western will happen in Pisces. So understand that the king is literally going to tell everybody, and we're going to do a live on this with a different person soon. They're going to tell everybody, here's what you need to serve, Saturn, and here's what we need to use your mental prowess for, Mercury. And we're going to say, hey, look, servant, dutiful warrior, Saturn, and, you know, mindful, esoteric trickster, because it'll be Pisces and Mercury. We need y'all to serve my mission. And as the ruler of the kingdom, ruling in the ninth house, here's what I will tell you. I will return optimism and massive blessings if you serve me. But you will not get your reward up front, because all of you need to pay taxes in order for us to win this victory, this battle, this war call you see. So in order to win this war, I need you to understand that you don't have the vision right now. That's okay. That's cool. But I can clear as day see the future. And I need y'all to work for me. I need you to give me all your money, all your taxes, all your property. I need you to give me your intellectual prowess. I need you to give me your brainstorm, yada, yada, yada. I need you to give me everything you're worth, Saturn and Mercury. And then when the dust settles, I will show you the way. And I will reward you with wealth. That's it.
Yeah, that really covers it.
All right, baby. Bobby the Birds, right? Singing, follow you. Yes, I love the bird. Are you talking about the birds in the background? They be singing all day.
Mm-hmm.
All right, ladies and gents, hit the thumbs up and the likes button. I have in the chat Joe's latest information. Is way up top, because I see you're all commenting. Let me see if I can paste this. I want you to check this link out. Okay, paste. Bam. Nope, that's timestamps. I don't have it. Wait, 1 second.
On my video.
What's up? You put it on your video?
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're in Aquarius season, man. We gotta
put it right now.
This is the sharing is caring season.
One
okay.
second, I can paste the link.
Okay, thank you. Bam, bam. Joe. Star. Okay, so y'all see this here? He's been working, like I said, on the 88 constellations. I really do believe that this is his own unique approach. Like, I don't know a single other person working with the 88 constellations. Not one. Not one. Not one. And like we said, notice that he found his own way to get to the same information that I'm telling y'all from a Vedic lens. It's the same information. And so when I look at this, I just want you to understand, like, All you entrepreneurs, problem solving is one of your most important skills that you can develop. And to solve a problem, most times you have to step away from the immediate way you are trying to solve the problem and then look at it from a different vantage point. And that's one of the things that I feel that this Aquila war call that he put up and his ability to look at the 88 constellation is actually highly beneficial and useful. All right. Without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and say bye to y'all. Joe, I'll catch you backstage in case there's anything you want to say on an individual level. And I'm gonna show y'all this. Feel free to check out our free registration. All entrepreneurs, this is definitely for you.